speed,
Metcalf chase him down.
the power, the intensity. It's like no other sport.
Touchdown!
Every ounce of preparation to achieve that extra edge.
This is just insane.
It's that same relentless pursuit of perfection that's helping fuel a revolution off the field to improve player health and safety with cutting-edge technological advancements.
Set the tone. Let's go.
A revolution that is being driven by data. More of it than ever before is collected to better help the NFL understand exactly how injuries are happening on field.
It's a commitment that we're going to do everything to make sure our players are safer, that we make our game safer, and that we actually lead in innovation.
Tens of millions of dollars in both the lab and on the field, in stadiums and on players, to gain deeper insights into player injuries that are improving protective equipment, driving safety-related rule changes, and informing coaching and training.
Didn't I tell you it's hard to block me?
The engineering roadmap was a large-scale investment made by the league to better understand concussions on field and head injuries more generally as experienced by NFL players. And so we hired a number of biomechanical engineers, experts in the field who came from the automobile industry, understanding injury biomechanics. And we asked them, what can we do with the information that we have here to analyze and better understand what's happening on field, and then hopefully begin to prevent it. And one of the primary goals that came out of the engineering roadmap has been ways to transform the helmet industry to build equipment that better protects players.
What up, though? As you can see, as my slight intro, this is my short on Tua Tagovailoa concussion. So you see from the video that I showed a minute ago that they were talking about player safety and technology and innovation and how they are spend millions and billions of dollars to protect the player. That was the NFL statement. You know, you saw Roger Goodell talking about how much money they spent for player safety. But yet we have a man who was concussed twice. And the game against the Bills, they said it was a back injury, but clearly it looks like a concussion. Now, I'll be the first to admit, when I first saw it, I said, okay, yeah, it looks like a concussion, but I'll go with the back injury thing because I didn't really see the full video. I kind of saw it a little bit, heard the reports and said it was a back injury. I know I've had my back stiffen up and it made me fall back down, but I didn't even notice the part of him grabbing his head to after I went back and seen it again. So you will see, like I have mentioned, and I think we did the live video, I said, well, maybe it's a back injury. Let's, because I just saw him fall to the ground. I didn't see the other part to it. But as I started looking at it more and more, and then more and more stuff started coming out, I had to backtrack on what I said. It looked like on the Bills, in the Bills game, it was a concussion. And you can clearly see him grabbing his head. You can clearly see him grab his head twice, fall back down. And then, he's supposed to take it to concussion protocol. So I'm going to show a few videos, talk about it, to try to prove my point. I'm going to get out your way.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Carl Schuffers. I'm the referee tonight. Who's the doctor that's running the meeting?
Scott Rodia, New York Giants.
How you doing, sir?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. ATC, you guys are ATC spotters?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, we'll go through and introduce.
Certainly want to have an open line of communication with you all. So when we go out on the field at 50 minutes, I'll radio up to you. ATC spotter, this is a referee. Are we online? Just to confirm that communication.
60 minutes before every NFL game, a critical meeting takes place between game officials and key medical personnel to establish familiarity with one another while reviewing essential injury-related procedures.
If we do decide to stop the game for head and neck trauma only, you'll tell us what player, what team that needs to be removed.
In the event of a suspected head injury, the league's concussion protocol goes into effect. Every player who undergoes a sideline concussion evaluation enters the blue medical tent.
So if we want to examine a player and we want to bring them in the tent, someone will literally just come over, grab the tent, pull it up, Voila.
That's quick.
And now we can go in. And basically what you can see is that we've now
It's already cooler
created a medical
in here
exam room.
and a little quieter.
Completely quieter, and also we've eliminated all the visual distractions, right? There's not scoreboards that are flashing and plays that are going on. So if I need to do a concussion exam, I really need you to focus and concentrate. I'm going to examine your eyes and do some things where I need you really to lock in visually, and so that really is facilitated by being inside here.
And the player is to stay in the tent until that is completed and the medical personnel determine whether they are cleared
That's
or
correct.
go back to the
That's
locker
correct.
room.
In fact, we take the player's helmet away from them so that they can't inadvertently grab a helmet and get back in the game until that decision has been reached.
So clearly in this video, you can see that they're talking about what is the the concussion protocol. You know, take the player back, they get out the blue tent, they're supposed to examine the player, take his helmet away so he can get back into the game, and then determine whether or not, you know, he is healthy enough to get back into the game. That's supposed to go on under this tent. And you see the procedure that's going on. Now, the videos may be a little long, but I want you to kind of get a gist of almost like a timeline, so to speak, of what's going on with Tua. Even though the videos don't have Tua in it, but you get kind of a backdrop of what's going on in the NFL when they deal with concussions in general and the protocol is supposed to happen after they suffer a concussion. I don't know why I keep saying percussion. They suffer a concussion. Going back to Tua, he went into he should have went to the tent on Sunday's game against the Bills. For some reason, they let him back out of the tent. For what reason, I don't know. They said he had a back injury, and I'm gonna get back to that in a minute. But I'm gonna keep showing you some things, and then I'm gonna kind of point out some things afterwards. Then, like I said, I'm gonna get out your way.
The injury that he sustained on Sunday was a concussion. I was astonished that he was able to come back in the second half. That means it had to clear not one, but 2 concussion protocol doctors. Best case scenario, this is only a concussion. There are so many worse things, it's not even funny. One that scares me the most is called second impact syndrome. Any person watching this, I want you to learn about this right now. After you sustain a head injury and you do not allow it to fully heal, which there's no way it could be, you then sustain another concussive blow, which causes swelling in the brainstem, and you die. Yes, it's that serious. This is really, really serious.
Now, it's interesting what he said in this video. I'm gonna get back to what he said about the second impact syndrome and the mortality of that. But dealing with concussions in general, when you suffer a concussion, you suffer something that's they consider a circuit malfunction. So you take a blow to the head, your brain get twisted, and once that happens, things are not going to work. You may lose connection, the circuits that connects to your different organs. You know what I'm saying? Because the brain controls your body. So you might have a problem with breathing. You may have a problem with digestion. You may have a problem with your nervous system. That's a circuit malfunction because those circuits or neurons and stuff that's connected in the brain that's going, connect to the nerves that control all your systems in there may malfunction from a concussion. That's from one concussion. Or you might get a metabolic malfunction, something that's biochemical, your immune system and stuff like that from a concussion. So 2 things may happen during a concussion. One, that's the first concussion you may suffer. So it's interesting because when you look at how long it takes to recover from a concussion, The very least I heard was 2 weeks, but most people say 30 days. Now, we who those of us who watch football, who watch the NFL, no one who suffered concussion sat out for 30 days. It's you out for that game unto the following Sunday, or if you played on Thursday unto Sunday. Perhaps if they consider you suffered a concussion, if you have a Thursday game, you might not play till next Sunday, but you don't sit out for no 30 days. So keep that in mind when you're talking about second impact syndrome. Now, another thing with second impact syndrome, since he brought that up, the mortality rate is 10%. So it's not a high mortality rate. And also with second impact syndrome, usually the symptoms or the the signs of that happen immediately. It's not like it's like a week later. Now, the effects of a concussion can last up to 30 days, but the second impact syndrome normally doesn't last. Normally, the symptoms come up quickly. So I bring that up because not a lot of questions was raised about Tua, and oh, he shouldn't have got on a plane, and you know, and something might happen because he got the second concussion. Now, having said all that, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have the symptoms. So there's a difference between second impact syndrome and having the symptoms of a concussion that can cause further damage. I'm hoping I'm explaining this so I'm making myself clear. So you have second impact syndrome, and I'm not a doctor, I'm just going by what I've read. So you have second impact syndrome, which can happen after a second concussion happens. So your first time you concuss, if you suffer a concussion, before the recovery period of the first concussion, you can suffer a second impact syndrome. So if that happens, the impact of that usually be immediately. However, after 30, if you don't recover after 30 days, then you have a post concussion symptoms that can still linger on. So it's like, and I'm bringing things up for a reason. So you got your initial recovery, which takes 30 days, right? But if in between that you get hit again, you can have a second impact syndrome. But if the second impact syndrome doesn't give you any kind of symptoms, it's not, oh no, symptoms ain't the word I'm looking for. It doesn't give you any kind of problem. Let's say problems for lack of better words. Don't give you any kind of problems immediately, then the mortality rate of that kind of goes down. It's not to say mortality can't happen after that, but the mortality rate of that goes down. However, it takes at least 30 days for you to fully recover. When you think about Jim McMahon and how he suffered, and so many other players that suffered, Junior Seau, we can go down a list and just name people who suffered from concussions. And then the NFL says, oh, well, we all about, player safety now. And like I saw in the video earlier, we all about technology. We hire all these people in to make sure that the players are safe. And then you see what happened with Tua. So I'm like, well, that don't make sense. And then one thing I noticed, and I'm gonna show you in this other video, and I didn't know this until I saw this video. If you notice, like in the second on the Thursday game when they played the Bengals, how his hands kind of were rigid. If you look real close, I'm showing this video. If you look real close from the Bills game, his hands kind of did that initially in that particular game too. It didn't do it as much and as noticeable, but it did it. So that shows further signs of concussion. So let me show you the video. You see now he got hit. He's getting up. He's disoriented. He's walking around. He falls. Watch him grab his head. Grab his head again. Boom, boom, boom.
really familiar to what Tua looked to do with his hands after the hit on Sunday. You can see his hands have some of that rigidity here and how similar that looks to what we actually saw Thursday.
So you see how his hands kind of look in both ways, they look that way. I'm like, come on, man. We got to do better, man, with our players. But see, the problem is, here's the issue. The issue is when you want to do the right thing with player safety and it intersects with the bottom line or the profit. When those two things intersect, that's where the issue happens. That puts Mike McDaniels in a precarious situation because he's a new coach, supposed to be the guru. People don't always look at, oh, he didn't have his starting quarterback. They look at wins and losses. You start losing, that blame goes on the coach. So you have that pressure. And if you have the pressure of not putting a good product out, you have that pressure. So there's a lot of things that goes on. So those two things are profit and doing the right thing intersect, money usually always wins. It's interesting because Dan Leotard, I got that name. Dan Leotard did an interview, and he said this.
You also said after seeing what happened, fire the medical staffs and coaches. That is something that never happens. Like, I understand why you're saying that, but you know good and well that that's not one of the possibilities here.
And then you hear reports that they fired the medical doctors. So never say never, Dan. They fired the medical doctors. I'm gonna play this last video. I'm gonna give you my last 2 cents. I'm gonna get up out your way.
Incident and promising a full investigation on whether the strict rules on head injuries were violated. Joining me now is the executive director of the NFL Players Association, Damaris Smith. Damaris, thank you so much for being with us. There are so many questions. Within an hour of Sunday's game, when Tua was questionably back in the second half, you guys at the Players Association announced you were initiating an investigation. What's that entail, and how much more scrutiny will this get following what happened Thursday?
Well, thank you for having me on this morning. There's going to be a full investigation, and that investigation started in earnest last week, and it focuses on really two things. One, whether the protocols were followed when there was an obvious indication that he may have suffered a traumatic brain injury last week. The second focus that we have the opportunity to do under the collective bargaining agreement is to look at the decision of the medical personnel and primarily to ensure that they were treating this player like we want all of our players treated, like a patient first instead of a player first.
And Damaris, the first thing you said is that one of the things you guys will be investigating is whether those protocols were followed. Under the league's concussion protocol, players displaying gross motor instability, that's a no-go. And I know this is all coming up because of Thursday, but it all goes back to Sunday. We all saw Tua stumbling after that hit and what looked exactly like gross motor instability. How could he have been cleared to return to play on Sunday?
Well, that's the goal of the investigation. And I saw it as well. And I've been in this job long enough not only to see someone engage at a time on the field where it looks like they've suffered a traumatic brain injury. But more importantly, I've been in this job long enough to know that the goal of the collective bargaining agreement and the reason we wrote the protocols back in 2011 is we want our doctors to treat our players as patients first. And when you look at what happened last week, when we all saw him stumbling on the field, the first question I always have is, would that doctor have put his son or his daughter back in the game?
So now you see here, but he mentioned two things that caught my attention. The first thing he said, treat a player like a patient first and a player second. But you see in this business that doesn't happen because this is a money-making machine. The NFL generates a lot of money. You just see they played a game in London. They played a game in Mexico before. Now they're talking about going over to Germany to play. They are generating billions upon billions and billions upon dollars. And the product that they peddling are the players. So you can't afford to have those players out 30 days. You can't afford to have those players sitting for a long time, because the longer they sit, less money you make. So those is in the best interest of the doctor to treat them like a player first and a patient second. But the PA's interest is to make sure the doctor treat them like a patient first. And that's where those two things collide and intersect. And that's where the issue is. One of the issues is that you have doctors, even though they quote unquote independent, but the NFL's paying you. And so essentially, even though you had a title independent, you're working for the NFL, because this is billions upon billions of dollars at stake. This helps your private practice, because you can put on your resume, hey, I worked for the NFL. So there's a lot of money standing to be lost if you piss off the NFL. So it's in your best interest to make the NFL happy than to make the player happy. That's one thing. Then she talked about the no-go signs. And this is going to kind of bring me to my point. So the no-go signs it said if these no-go signs are observed, it doesn't matter if they go back to the tent and pass the rest of the test, follow your eyes and all that stuff, because you can, on a field, display these no-go signs, the gross motor skills, incoherentness. And by the time you get back to the tent, you can pass those protocol tests, because your brain kind of, that fog kind of lifted a little bit, and so now you are able to concentrate more and pass the test. But doesn't mean that those symptoms are not still there. It doesn't mean that the signs of the concussion is not still there. But the rule says that once those are observed, it doesn't matter what happens after that. Now, another part of that, and here's the loophole. It says that the no-go sign has to be proven that is a neurological cause. I can't say the word. The no-go sign has to be proven that it's a neurological cause, or that an orthopedic cause can be ruled out. And this allows an addition of subjectivity. It's subject to interpretation. That's one loophole. Then, because you got to remember, they don't have an X-ray back there, so they can't really give you a thorough examination. They can't X-ray your brain and see any damage there. That's not what they have back there. So if you are able to be coherent back there, but you saw those gross motor skills, you're not supposed to be able to play. You saw Tua, he's stumbling. Those are the signs right there. So he shouldn't even have he should immediately went to hospital, according to the rules. But the loophole says that you have to prove that it's neurological, or orthopedic have to be ruled out, or another thing can be the cause of it. So for instance, if you say, okay, I don't think it's neurological, but you can't really tell because you ain't running any tests, I don't think it's orthopedic. However, it could be a back strain. So as soon as you say introduce that back strain or back pain, boom, that's your loophole. Well, it's not neurological, but it's a back, and just this back pain, boom, he can go on back in. And that's how Tua is allowed to get back into that game on Sunday. But here's the issue I have with that. They still ain't follow their protocol, because everybody saw, what happened to him. They have spotters up in the booth looking. They have the people on the field, the people on the sideline, and plus the players on the field, the players who helped them up. Because all those, if you look at the rules, all those are supposed to be included in that. Anyone who observes that can say he needs to go through concussion protocol. So you saw that in what he done. Yet and still, you put him through the tent and let him go back out. So then after that, he plays on Thursday night against the Bengals, and he suffers another hit. So now you put this man's life, career, and health in jeopardy. Now, my last issue, I'll say, if you Tua, do you retire? Now, some people say, oh, no, you shouldn't retire. But I'm not looking at just these two instances. I'm looking at his whole injury report, his whole injury history. Let's go through it. In 2018, he suffered injury to his left throwing hand. Hit his hand on a lineman's helmet. Can happen. Boom. It happened to Dak Prescott. So that happens. Then a couple months later in October 2018, he tweaked his knee after sliding. Freak accident. Tweaked his knee, slid, slide, tweaked his knee. Another month later, he suffered a quad injury in 2018. Then a month after that, he injured his left ankle and had surgery. Comes back next year, beginning of the season, and this is in Alabama. We talking about Alabama now. Beginning of the season, he tweaks his right ankle. So left ankle, right ankle. So he got two ankles already prone to being injured again. Because once you get an injury, it's easy for that particular area to be injured again. Then gets into the NFL, 2020. He has injured his thumb in practice. Then we go through COVID. Comes back 2021. He has a small fracture in his middle finger of his throwing hand. Then come back 2022. I remember he got hurt with that. He didn't play for a minute because who played? Was it Fitzpatrick played? So then this year, concussion. In the Bills game, turned back, concussion. 4 days later, another concussion. Now, I heard people say Christian McCaffrey is injury prone. I heard people say Saquon Barkley is injury prone. But nobody's saying that about Tua. Tua is built smaller. So that's one thing. He's a quarterback. He's gonna get hit. They do protect the quarterback, but them big linemen coming at you, you getting hit. You take some heck of a falls. If you already are prone now to concussions, it just take that one that you will never be the same again. Man, people talk about, Muhammad Ali taking too many blows to the head, and that will help worsen his Parkinson's. I named a couple players already who suffer from concussions. Now you look at this man who already had a laundry list of injuries, plus 2 concussions already. If you come back and play this year and suffer another concussion, that can be the one that because remember that brain moves around your head and just swells. Now you play again before that swelling go down, you get hit again, boom. Might not be fatal, but it can mess you up for a long time. Now I don't mean this in a bad way, but I'm just gonna say it. I wish he'd have got his bag first before he retired. And so I can kind of understand why he would want to play before he get his bag. But here's the problem with that too. If you don't get a chance to perform because you keep getting hurt or you suffer another concussion, you're not going to get a bag. And then nobody else going to take a chance on you so you can get a bag. So what do you make that decision? Health or money. It's up to Tua to decide. It's up to Tua to decide. But I think the NFL failed him, and it's really exposed the NFL even more. I mean, I knew it from the get-go. NFL, all that smoke they talk about, safety and player safety, they only mean that for PR reasons. Because if Ray Rice didn't have a tape, Ray Rice would still be playing. Kareem Hunt, they dropped the ball on that. But they have some film, still be playing. So they really cared about the player, or just protecting the shields, they say. Those wouldn't happen. Then now you move into the safety thing. They cared about the health and wellness of the player. Tua would not have played on Sunday. He would not have been. I'm sorry, on Thursday, and he would not have went back into the game on Sunday. You gotta use Bridgewater should have came and finished that game on Sunday, and then Tua probably shouldn't have played on Thursday. He shouldn't play again until the following Sunday. And then I think that would have been reasonable than to have this man who clearly suffered a who clearly suffered a concussion play again and suffer another concussion, who now, if he plays again, can be prone to more concussions and then never be the same person. You're never the same person once you play football anyway. You're going to have aches and pains, bumps and bruises, all that. But if you have your brain function, you're a lot better off than not having your brain function. That's all I'm saying. The NFL failed Tua. They failed him. And they need to be punished. Now, I know that ain't gonna happen, but I'm just saying they failed this man, and they need to be punished for it. They failed Tua. And it's bad because Tua's not gonna be the last person this happened to. They're not gonna be happy till this becomes a mortality issue, where they're gonna be forced by public pressure to do something. Instead of being proactive, they're gonna be more reactive. That's all they ever been, is reactive, never been proactive. They reactive to each and everything that happens. NFL is reactive. They're being proactive, But anyway, I don't want to make this video too long, as long as I wanted it to be. But I wanted to show the videos so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. Some of the doctors have said what a concussion is, what can happen with a concussion, and just kind of give you my thoughts on Tua and what happened with Tua. Should he retire? Drop in the comments. Let me know. Me personally, I would consider it if I was Tua. And that's because of the health issues. Because you're talking about your brain. But, if he doesn't retire, I won't look down on him or anything. I won't feel, I won't feel like, oh, he should have retired. That man has to make a decision that's best for him and his family. So, I'm just putting it out there for the discussion. Do you think Tua should retire or not? Drop. Is he injury prone? Well, I'm being hyperbolic about it. Drop in the comments. Like and subscribe, share, hit the like button, bang. Hit the subscribe button, bang. We get everything that we gonna upload, especially when we go live on Mondays and Thursdays at 4 o'clock. Until next time,